What's up, guys? Joining me today is my good friend Mamie Bawoh. She's 20 years old and she's from Sierra Leone in West Africa. She currently lives in Houston, Texas, and she is a nursing major in her junior year, like myself, studying to become a registered nurse. First off, Mommy, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. So, how long did you live in your home country, Sierra Leone?
I was born in Sierra Leone and I lived there for 10 years before I came to the United States.
10 years, wow. Okay. And what was your experience like being an immigrant, specifically a Black immigrant from Africa? We went to the same middle school, but I always wondered what was it like being from a different country and coming here to the United States?
Honestly, I feel like I had kind of a mixed experience because I feel like at a young age when I came, because I came here when I was 10. And when I came to the United States at a young, back in elementary school days, I had to deal with the judgments that of what people had, the misconception that people had of, like African people in general, where people thought like people thought that we were African booty scratchers, just the negative and the ignorant stereotypes and all that stuff.
Right.
So I had to deal with that. But I felt like towards the end, as time went on, I ended up being more comfortable with, I ended up making but I ended up making friends and so that got a little easier. But like when I first came here towards the beginning, at first I had to deal with a lot. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's just so much coming
Right.
at me. And I felt like it was so bad because I remember when I was younger, because growing up, in Africa and just growing up in Sierra Leone in general, like our gears and our traditional customs and our dresses and what we wear is like really really important to us. And I remember my grandmother actually used to sew clothes, and she used to like make the shikis and all that stuff, African prints and all that.
Wow.
So she would make it and then she would ship it to me over here. She would go the extra mile of shipping it to me over here, which is
Wow.
a lot to go through. And so for me to wear it, so even though I'm not back home, I'm still able to kind of like like still be able to like have that living here. And I remember my mom wanted me to like start wearing that to go to school. And so every Friday, I would like she wanted me to like wear like my African dashikis to school. And going to school, I remember the kids used to make they made me go through hell for that. Like they will make fun of it, they'll poke fun of it, they would just say things like, "What is she like? What is she wearing? What is that?" Just saying mean and negative stuff. And it got so bad to the point where like I used to just like pack regular clothes in my backpack, and so I'll wear it to leave the house and make my mom think that I'm gonna wear it. I have it on, and then once I got into school, I would just change because I just didn't want to go through that. You know, if
And
that makes
that that
sense.
that honestly really like frustrates me, but also kind of makes me sad because just because someone's different from you doesn't mean that you have to hate it or make fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure it's people, not only non-black people, but I'm sure it's also black people making fun of you back then, and not just you, many other African kids. And it's like we're both black.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you judging her
Mm-hmm.
or him? Why are you making fun of him? That's their culture. I don't think make fun of racist people, make fun of Donald Trump. Don't make fun of your people. you know.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm. And
but
I
yeah,
feel like another reason why I also had to deal with that was because like again like I feel like the way the media kind of like portrays like African countries too had a lot to deal with why they did what they did, because it was kind of like, oh, like I don't want to be a part of that, like they're savages. It just, again, like I said, just negative misconceptions. So I went through like a little bit of like microaggression from African Americans, and so like I don't know, I felt like I had a mixed experience. Like I said, towards the end, like towards like middle school and high school, I started getting more comfortable, because I was just like, I feel like it also took me having to assimilate into like wearing things that are like, like I don't want to say African American clothing, but like just wearing normal clothes,
right,
in order for me to kind of like blend in or for me to be seen as like part of. Does it make sense?
right. Like you're trying
So
to fit in and not be
yeah,
different.
yeah. So in order for me to fit in, I kind of had to like, in a way, kind of like had to like let that Africanness of me kind of slide, even though I didn't necessarily do that. But I feel like that was what I had to do in order for me to kind of like,
Right.
make
Because young
friends.
people can be mean. whether you're from
Very.
the country or not. So I really understand that. I felt like when I was younger, I had to wear certain brands. I felt like all my clothes
Mm-hmm.
had to be like name brand, Polo,
Mm-hmm.
Hollister, Nike, because all the
I mean,
pop
you still rock Hollister,
and
so
I'm still rocking Hollister. Those that
yeah.
had a big impact on me. But like I feel like as a young black American growing up, I felt like I had to because all the popular kids were wearing certain name brands and I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be popular, I wanted to be
Mm-hmm.
cool. So I can see where you're coming from with that. Did you feel
Yeah.
closer or more connected with your own people rather than the black American students?
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like even with like, for example, you're Jamaican and Puerto Rican, right?
Right.
So I feel like if you were to be around a group of people who are that too, and rather than someone who's from a country that I feel like there's a better connection when you're from the same country. Does it make sense? But at
Yeah.
the same time, like I never really kind of like disregarded my African American brothers and sisters and kind of looked at them as like like anything negative, because at the end of the day they were black just like me. Like although me and other Africans can kind of connect with things about like culturally or just our African experiences growing up in general. I can also like I also had like interest I also share like similar interests with people that, my African Americans, like with Black Americans that, like grew up here. Like we also had like interests. So I felt connected to both, honestly. I never kind of like, discriminated against any. So
Right. I feel
yeah.
that. That makes sense. Switching gears a little bit, in a 2018 Breakfast Club interview with Insecure actress Yvonne Orji as a guest, she spoke with Charlemagne the God and DJ Envy about the relationship between Africans and Black Americans. Yvonne Orji explained how all of a sudden Black Americans went from making fun of African people to celebrating and wanting to embrace African culture and African people. How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts?
Feel like I definitely agree that there's now all of a sudden there's a sudden like trend to kind of like like mesh in or kind of like like get in with the Afrocentric vibes. Does it make sense? It's like it's so funny because I feel like now that I'm getting older, like being African is like trendy or it's like cool to be that now. So now I'm seeing like those
Like
same
with
people who
Black
used to like make
Panther
fun.
and
Yeah,
certain stuff.
yeah, especially with that movie being released. But I feel like what it is that as of right now, like the whole trendiness of just being African in general, like people want to like kind of like get into that. So I'm seeing the same people who had negative perceptions of African countries are kind of like trying to get into that too. And I'm seeing them like wearing waist beads, wearing dashikis, wearing all this. And it's like, what changed? Like what changed?
Right.
Well, people know.
For me, it went from me being very young and not being um proud of being black to seeing Black Panther the movie, and it's like wow, like I'm really proud of where I come from and my culture and my people and my history and my roots. I think that's an important thing as a black person to be proud of, you know. It sucks that it was a number of reasons for me. It wasn't just a fictional Marvel movie, but I think that Black Panther really it just really sparked it just sparked like a love for like my roots and my people. Um
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. I feel like that movie was like a whole turning point for most, African Americans in general, just for Black people in general. I feel
right.
like it was so impactful on so many, like, and just in so many different levels. And I feel like it really did it. So the whole, like, wanting to be proud of your roots and everything that you're saying now, a lot of that, like, kind of like stemmed from the movie because people kind of saw like this fictional, like, that country in Africa that was so powerful and was able to like do all this without any touch of like European influence. Does it make sense? And I
Right.
felt like it gave people that idea like, whoa, like that's where I'm from. Like, like they just I don't want to I feel like it gave a different perception about the diaspora in general because
Yes.
of that movie. A lot of people had a change of heart. A lot of people were like, Black Wakanda forever. A lot of people, no,
Right. Wakanda
seriously. Like
forever.
people were just like all up in it, and people were just like they were really, really feeling it. So many people even saw the movie more than once because it was such a powerful thing, and I felt like it was powerful not only because of the movie and the cast and everything else that was, that had to do with it, but I felt like it was powerful because it really did change the way Black Americans kind of like saw like Africans or African countries in general. you know.
Right. Like we all felt connected. And I think that
Hmm.
parade was so important because it was
Hmm.
the first time, like, wow, a superhero. Because a lot of people didn't know about Storm and Holly Berry.
Hmm.
A lot of people didn't know about the superhero Blade that Wesley Snipes played back in the 90s. I didn't know about that. Or Luke Cage on Netflix. Black Panther, that was the first one for me. And it's like, wow, like I wish I had
Hmm.
this when I was younger. And I'm 18,
Hmm.
but it still had a really big impact. So I think it was important, like what you just said. Speaking of
Yeah,
Black Panther and Black is King, a film on Disney Plus, directed by Beyonce. How do you feel about films like that? Do you feel like the portrayal is a positive one? The message, do you feel like it's accurate, authentic? How do you feel?
I felt like it was positive. I really enjoyed the fact that, like she included not only did Beyonce go out of her way to like, record music with these artists, but they were also like included in her, music videos, even though they were like 2, 3 seconds long, but they were still there, like. And I felt like I really loved the way like African artists were like represented, their music was part of the album and whatever. And I don't know, I think it was a good project. I loved the choreography, I loved everything about it. But however, I did notice on Twitter that there were so many debates about
Yes.
specifically Africans, saying that Beyonce was what's the word, culturally appropriating West African culture specifically because they felt
Right.
like she was making a profit of a culture that she doesn't necessarily know a lot about, you
Right.
know. And so that was a whole thing that was going on Twitter with people just
Right, and I wanted to bring up that point about cultural appropriation. So the definition of cultural appropriation is the adoption of an element or elements of one culture or identity by members of another culture or identity. This can be controversial when members of a dominant culture appropriate from disadvantaged disadvantaged minority cultures. So I feel like there's a difference that people need to understand between cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. Appreciation is when someone seeks to understand and learn about another culture in an effort to broaden their perspective and connect with others cross culturally.
Mhm,
Appropriation is simply taking one aspect of one culture that is not your own and using it for your own personal interests. So
mhm.
for me, I would like to think that I feel like Kim Kardashian and certain white people that be wilding and wearing box braids and stuff. I feel like that's I feel like that's cultural appropriation. Whereas I
Mhm,
feel like Beyonce, a whole black woman, I feel
mhm.
like her wanting to make a visual album to her album Lion King the Gift, I feel like I don't really see the harm in that. Because
Yeah.
yes, she might not be like, you know, 100% Nigerian or Sierra Leonean or whatever African country, she's still a black woman, and if she traces her roots back through
Mhm,
DNA and whatever, she is comes from Africa. That's where her
mhm.
ancestors come from. So I feel like I don't see where she's appropriating. I really feel like she's appreciating her own culture, you know?
Yeah. And like you said, she's a black woman. So at the end of the day, she's allowed to want to tap into that side of her if that's what she wants to do. Like, you can't tell a black woman you're appropriating the culture that you already are. Does it make sense? That how am I appropriating something that I am? That's like you telling me
Right.
I'm appropriating African culture, huh? Make it make sense. What?
Right,
It's
exactly.
like yeah, because it's like how am I appropriating something that I am? Anyway, so
I think
I
people were offended that like Beyonce got so much screen time and the African artists didn't get as much as she did.
yeah,
You have
that's
to
what I was
remember
saying
that
earlier when
it
I
was
said two, three
it's her
seconds. Yeah.
project. It's not like a documentary about Africa. It's her project. So of course she's gonna put herself at the forefront. You know?
Yeah, definitely. But I just feel like at the same time, it's kind of like people just wanted to make sure that it was something that she was just like, it was something that, like, everything that she included was something that she knew of. Yeah.
At the end of the
I,
day, she's a black woman and I don't think she was harming anyone, and I think you agree.
definitely.
Moving back to Black Panther, is it offensive to you at all when Black American actors or actresses play African characters or African real life people? As if, maybe like a Black American actor wanted to play Nelson Mandela. Should we, is that like offensive at all?
I don't think it's offensive. No, I don't think so. I mean, honestly, if I'm being honest with you, like I would definitely want to see more just African actresses and actors like on the, on the big screen and see them in bigger like productions. But at the same time, it's like what it is to me is the fact that they're still black, They're
Right.
still black. But it's kind of like I feel like I might be contradicting myself at the same time because, like it's like you asking me, should we give like other black girls the opportunity to play different roles instead of recasting Zendaya to
Yeah,
play
right.
to be
Zendaya
the
and
black
all
girl
these
in every movie.
girls playing
Yeah,
black girls. Let's give light
yeah,
to the dark skinned black girls. Let's give light
yeah.
to African. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
understand.
feel like it's the same thing because, like, at the end of the day, it's like we definitely want to see a wide variety of people, not just the same people over and over again. So it's like even if it's a fresh faced Black American actor, it's not the fact that they're Black American. It's just like the fact that I just feel like certain roles should be represented by different people because
We don't want Zendaya playing Princess Tiana.
yeah, it's like certain roles are just, you want them to like kind of like stick to what they are.
Right.
And I don't think it's like offensive. I would not take offense though if an African American actor was to play, African. But I would want that part to go to an African person. But
Because they
if
deserve it.
yeah. But just because you want to see like different varieties of people on the big screen and not just the same, because like let's be honest, like a lot of people know about like Black American actors and all that stuff. People don't like they're more on the forefront rather than African actors and all those actresses and whatnot. So it would be nice for them to kind of like like have the opportunity to like I said to be on the big screen too.
Have their moment to
But
shine. I completely
but I
agree.
definitely don't think it's offensive. I don't think it's offensive at all.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Also in the interview, Charlemagne asked Yvonne, do Africans look down on black people? That whole stereotype. Yvonne responded by saying, it's not that we are looking down, we are just looking up. It's about perspective. She would say that when she met a black American, they would say, oh, so you think you're better than us? She says that African people think that they're better than everyone. No one is your competition except for the person you're trying to advance over. I wanted to ask you, where do you think the disconnect between Black Americans and Africans came from?
I feel like it all kind of stems off like from slavery. Like
Mm,
I've heard this, so many times where African Americans, or not, I'm not speaking for every African American. These are just the people that I've had conversations with,
right.
where they felt like Africans were like they were part of the problem during slavery because they were selling each other, they were doing all this, they were doing all this, and so there is that type of like like grudge that's kind of like held between the two groups, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I feel like what it is that I feel like both groups have like different, like they just have like they have their own, what's the word? They have their own ignorance and their myths and just the stereotypes both communities have of each other. You know, and I feel like that from the African side, which I can speak of, is that well, I can't speak up because I share the same opinion, but just something that I've heard a lot, you know, is the fact that Africans kind of like look at Black Americans as in like very lazy because they see it as like me as an immigrant, I can come into this country and kind of like get whatever opportunity that I'm looking for. And as hard as it may be, but I'll still be able to apply some pressure into like getting, into being successful and whatever. And it's like you're in a country that has like so many of these opportunities and you still don't do nothing with them, you know? And it's like
Right.
it's kind of like so they look at it as like just lazy, like just pure lazy, not hardworking, you're not dedicated, you don't have a like they lack ambition. Like that is like the way it's seen from their eyes. However, what it is that they also don't look at the fact that there's so many different things that are like holding them back, but they're if you were to say that as an excuse for them, like it would be like, okay, well there's so many things holding me back, but I'm still gonna go for what I want. So
Right.
what's stopping them, but
Right.
anyway, that's just
It's two
hmm
perspectives.
hmm
From coming from two different types of black people, like Black Americans, I feel like, there's racism, there's different roadblocks holding us back from achieving success. Sometimes we can achieve success, but it's hard. Whereas I think Africans, like you just said, it's like, well, just work hard, nigga. Like, just keep going. And it's like, it's it's that dichotomy of thinking. And I think the disconnect comes from, it could come from slavery, and I think it also could come from, you know, how Africans see Black Americans through the media and how Black Americans see Africans through the media. We're looking
Yes,
at it as two
and
completely
that is definitely something that I also wanted to touch on because,
right,
like, again, the way Africans are kind of like portrayed in, American media and just mainstream media in general is kind of like this shithole savage country where, kids are just running loose. They're just animals all over the place. It's just like they portray it as a place that you don't want to be a part of, and which why a lot of people, a lot of our Black American brothers and sisters kind of like want to kind of like get away from it because they don't want to be associated with a place like that. Does it make sense?
right,
So the negative stereotypes, the ignorance, and all of that kind of like stem all from that. And then you also have like Africans that watch American movies where Black Americans are kind of like depicted as like thugs and savages. So
stereo,
it's like it's like a both thing. Both sides are seeing like
negative portrayal,
negative portrayals and they take it as like that's what it really is, like this is America. It would not be presented as that if it was not that. Doesn't make sense. And I
right,
feel like that's why when African Americans come in here they have to deal with a lot because there's so much that there's so much that the people who've already lived there they've seen, especially if they've never really stepped away from the country to actually see for their own eyes. And a lot of them have not traveled to a lot of places for them to actually have like a different change of mind or a different perception too. But so when Africans come in here, they have to deal with those like negative stereotypes and those negative judgments, just like I did when I was, when I just recently
right.
came here.
You can speak to that.
And yeah, but it's funny because it's the opposite. If you were an African American traveling to an African country, I don't think they will look at you. I feel like if anything, they will look at you in a way where they will look at you as more superior. Does it make sense? Because you're from the United States. Does it make sense? Like if a Black American was like moved to the United States, it's like they will have something on the up hand because they lived in the United States. Does it make sense?
Oh, the United States gives them an advantage.
Yeah,
Okay,
because they lived in the US. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So it would not be looked at as like superior, but it was kind of be like, okay, they're from the United States, like you'd be looked at as like you're a big deal, if that makes sense.
okay. Yeah, that
But
makes
anyway,
sense. A lot of countries think that we're the best country in the world, so that even though I have some feelings about that, but
yeah,
that's true. And I think we also have to realize, like, speaking me as a Black American, speaking to other Black Americans, I want us to realize that we often only really see two portrayals of African people: kings and queens, dripping in gold and
and it's
jewelry,
like
like Coming to America, the 1988 film with Eddie Murphy, or flies in African children's faces in the commercials, famine, poverty. Like, that's problematic. These two different images. And I
and it,
think it speaks to the bigger thing of, for Black people, we don't have a lot of portrayals of us, you
mhm.
know? And I think that we have to, we need more Black directors, we need more Black writers, we need more images, more positive images of Black people, whether they're African, Caribbean, Afro Latino, Afro Asian, Afro Indigenous. We just need more positive images because if not, we'll continue to perpetuate stereotypes in society of our people and our specific communities. You being African, me being Black American. So I think
Right.
there's some work
Yeah,
to be done.
definitely. And I totally agree with what you said.
Yeah, we need to humanize African people. Because African people are everyday people. Like, it's not
I
like
mean,
a
I don't really see what the divide is really about because at the end of the day, we're all Black. I promise you, when you get pulled over by a cop, that cop don't care if you're African or African American. He gonna see that black skin and he gonna treat you the same way he treats the rest of the Black folks. He don't care about none of that. So it's like I don't really get like the whole divide. If anything, I feel like now, especially now, 2020 was a lot for us, for all of us to like deal with. And I feel like the good thing that came, well, it was not a good thing, but the very, and the most impactful thing that came from it was the whole, BLM protest and all of that stuff. And I
right,
felt like there was also a divide between that because, Black Americans were saying that Africans were not part of the, were not part of the support, which is I don't think was necessarily true because I'm African. I was part of that. I was part of that. And not only that, like there's so many other people who were also part of that. But I feel like what it is that now is also like the time for us to kind of like get into that united as one and not looking at each other as if like we're competition, or it's like,
We're on the
I
same
also feel like,
team. We're on the same team.
yeah, we're on the same team. You're like the same problems that you go through as an African. I promise you're gonna go through the same thing if you're African American. Because at the end of the day, it's like we're the same color. If you're black, I'm black. The only thing that separates us is a boat ride, or
Right, a
no, seriously,
language
or if
or
not, or a
culture.
plane, or a plane flight. So it's like
Right,
I
we're
just
all
don't
the
get the
same.
whole
And I
divide, to be
don't
honest.
think, it sounds silly for us to say, but I don't think people really realize that. I think there's people
Mm.
out there who are like, oh, like, I'm black, but I'm not African, or I'm African, but
Yeah,
I'm not black.
definitely. I feel like a lot of people tend to like, separate themselves from that. And I've heard that so many times. And I really just give them the eye, like, you make no sense whatsoever.
You sound
Because it's
ignorant.
like, but again, it comes from the fact that, like, of the perception that they already have of these countries. I feel like Africans also at the same time needs to be more sensitive toward, our Black American brothers and sisters, because it's kind of like they lost a huge, because for me, I feel like I'm lucky enough where I'm able to know like where I'm from. I know what part of my, where my dad's family, came from, where
Right,
their history and whatever. And I feel like it's hard because, for you guys, it's like you only understand that you're from here. I mean, some of you may be lucky enough where, that, you have other different origins too, but it's like you don't really know what part of the continent you started off from. Does it make sense? And I
right,
feel like that's another thing too, because that's a whole identity that's being lost, and that's a
right.
whole part of, which is a whole part of who you are. So it's like we also need to be more sensitive to the fact, and I say us as in like Africans need to be more sensitive to the fact that there's a whole different thing that's being lost within,
That is
with
so
you guys. And so I just think this whole thing is just
it's a
it's
mess.
just
It's a mess.
it's
It's part of
yeah.
colonization. It's due to slavery. It's due to a lot of things. Like
It
I
just,
feel,
yeah,
mhm,
it stems off a lot of stuff, and it's harsh. It's the harsh reality, but
mhm.
yeah.
And I feel like, some of us are fortunate to trace our ancestors back. Where
Mhm,
you come from. I'm fortunate to know that I'm Jamaican and Puerto Rican, but I don't know what part of the continent I'm from. So that's something
mhm,
that I would want to find out. And then there's black people who they don't even know what they are, whether they know that
mhm,
they're have African roots, but they don't know what part. They don't rep a nationality besides America. So it's like
mhm.
it's difficult. But yeah, I completely agree. So in conclusion, I have two last questions for you. How do you think we can bridge the gap and stop the tension between the two communities? What are some ways do you think that we can do that? Is
I
it more
definitely
movies, more TV shows about us?
I feel like that, the media is very impactful, and I feel like, the same way it had an influence on like the same way it was able to like influence people's perception of like different countries and all that stuff. It's the same way that can also be reversed, if that makes sense. I feel like positive portrayals of both communities will do nothing but good, but at the same time I feel like it also is going to have to take us having conversations with our other counterparts, and to like actually getting to know them and not just looking at them as like, yeah, he thinks I'm better than him. Oh yeah, they think they're better. Like, instead of doing all of that, I feel like, it takes, because I'm pretty sure it's happened to all of us where, we have a perception of someone and then they turn out to be completely different from what we expected, if that makes sense. And then it's like, I feel like that's what it is. Sometimes it takes you having to get to know that person in order for you to be like, whoa, okay, like what I thought I was completely wrong, about, these group of people. I feel like you're just gonna have to take, conversations, gonna have to take like wanting to be open to actually have those conversations. Because it's one thing for you to have a conversation and then you not being open to receiving what the other person is saying is a whole different thing too. So I feel like it's just, yeah, so it's just gonna have to I feel like, it's coming soon, but I feel like it takes conversation like these where you can offer your opinion and you can give me, a whole different, way of thinking about certain things that I've felt a different way about for a long time. And I feel like that's the thing between me and you. Sometimes, we have conversations like these and we have other, different conversations too, where it's like, whoa, Cervantes, I never thought about it like that, but,
Right,
and vice versa too. So I feel like it takes that to do a whole lot of good, I feel like, definitely.
right. I
Because
completely
at the end of
agree.
the day, we're all
What is
black, like
Yeah, it's not it's we shouldn't be fighting with each other. I think that's what the oppressor wants.
yeah,
They wanted to divide us. That was their
They want to see you. Yeah. And that's
they
that's
don't want to
exactly
see us
they're
win.
laughing right now.
You know,
Yeah.
it's about the unity between us is so important. And it's not even just, if we really want to talk about, it's not just Black Americans and Africans. It's also like pulling in the Latino community. You know, there's a
Mhm.
lot of
Mhm.
division there. You know, it's like, you know, you're not Latino because you're dark skinned, or you don't speak Spanish, or you don't, you know, it's like there's some work to be done there. And the
Mhm.
Afro Asian, you know, a lot of people don't know that there's Asian people who are Black. So I think there's unity that needs to be done within all of us. But like you said before, it's definitely going to take some time, because
Yeah.
this was years in the making of trying to
Oh, this
divide
was
us. So it's
yes.
going to take years in trying to unite us again.
We get that. Hopefully, it takes a little faster than normal because I'm tired.
Right.
I'm tired of people still saying dumb stuff, like how people thought that I had like lions just or running around my backyard. Like I've never even seen a real life lion. Like I think I have when I went to like the Bronx Zoo, but I don't think I've seen it like
That's
in my
so
head.
dumb.
Or
Or
people
that you
thought
had
that.
Ebola because you're
Yeah,
African. Like, what?
I'm telling you, and you know, it's so funny, like just the ignorance behind it all. I remember when I was in high school, when we were in high school actually, when the Ebola outbreak came, and
Right. I remember
we
freshman
all know it
year.
was yeah, and we all know it was affecting like like African countries, obviously. And I remember there was this. I will never forget this. There was this one kid who showed up to class for Halloween as a Halloween costume. He was dressed. I don't know if he was an Ebola patient, but he was dressed as an Ebola. I think an Ebola doctor, where
Oh,
like
like
you know how they have,
in a
like,
hazmat suit.
yeah, they had everything for me, and I just thought it was the weirdest shit I've ever seen in my life. And to this day, nothing has outdone that. Cause I'm just like you really think you've seen it all, and then you see something like that, and then
People
you're
are
just
so.
like,
And
what
was
the
he
hell?
black or was he white?
I don't remember. He was under that. He was under
Oh,
that
oh yeah,
costume.
you
I
probably
don't
didn't
remember.
see. But that's
I
just
thought
ignorant.
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't want to like just guess off the top of my head, but I feel like he was
You feel like he was
white.
white.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know.
No, but like
Because I
it's
just,
so ignorant.
yeah,
I just
but
hate that. Like I don't want to see, because if it was a black person, it's like, why? You know, and if it's a white person,
yeah.
why?
Like, what are you doing?
You know, like, that's so stupid. I don't even know what to say. That's just so stupid. I would never.
Yeah, but that is something that I just would never forget because I'm just like, why? And why aren't the people
Where are
doing
your
that?
parents? Like,
Wait,
who raised you?
my energy. I
You
know.
But my last question for you: what is your advice for anyone who doesn't feel comfortable and or proud to be African?
How are you not proud of being African? It's just so much to it. Like, like I feel like I don't know. Like for me personally, like, we went to a pretty diverse high school. So I had a diverse group of friends. And, I had African friends too. But honestly, I feel like it took me having to like move to Houston. When I moved here for college, I felt like I actually was able to surround myself around people who someone from Sierra Leone, someone from Nigeria, someone from Ghana, someone from, like different places, within the continent. And I felt like, getting together all as a group and us having conversations about the way we grew up and just not only grew up and just vibing in general. Like I felt like that to me was just like it took that for me to actually be like, whoa, like I'm really, really proud to be at. Like it's just something that's,
Yeah,
I feel like what it does is that it's like in order for you to get to that stage, I feel like it takes you having to surround yourself around people who are also proud to be that. Does it make sense? It's
right.
like it's like us vibing to music.
Mhm.
Yeah, you really have to immerse yourself in that type of thing. And yeah, I'm not saying don't have diverse group of friends because definitely should have diverse group of friends, you know. But at the same time, I feel like if you want to get yourself to the point where you're proud of who you are, just immerse yourself in your culture a little bit, learn a little bit about where you're from and all that stuff. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, like when I used to be discouraged for being African, I remember there were so many times I would go on YouTube, not YouTube, but on Google, I'd be like fun fact about Sierra Leone. Because at one point in time, I felt like I was kind of losing that, because I had African friends, but none of them were like from where I'm from. So I feel like I was kind of like I was losing a lot of history about where I'm from. So, but I always had the internet at my, my fingertips. I always could like research and do whatever,
Right.
whatever information I needed.
And find
And
out cool
sometimes
facts
I'll,
about your home
yeah,
country, yeah, and your
yeah,
culture.
and sometimes I'll find some really cool facts, and I'm just like, whoa, like that is so cool. Or like now it's kind of like the vibes, the music, the food,
The music, the
everything about it is
food,
just
the clothes,
it's
the
just a
people,
vibe.
the
You're
melanin.
like, yeah. And I feel like also kind of like this like stems from like you accepting your differences. Like let that be the reason you stand out. Don't try to, I mean, obviously sometimes, especially when you're young, you want to like fit into the crowd and you want to make, but I feel like one thing I felt like I should have did, even though, I feel like I kind of did that. I still held into my Africanness, but I felt like I was also trying to blend in at the same time. And I feel like now it's like I'm around people. I don't really have to do all of that because,
We're older now, and like we
yeah,
to
you
fit in
know,
like a certain
yeah.
box, or right. And I
And
think
even my diverse group of friends are kind of like they're also getting into that and they appreciate it, and I'm getting into their culture too. And I feel like it's a learning experience for all.
you're
So I
putting
feel
them on, they're putting
like,
you on. It's
yeah,
beautiful cultural exchange.
I feel like for me specifically, that really did help. Like, like I'm not saying you have to move to a place where that is the case. I'm pretty sure you can find, a group of people, you know.
Right.
eh,
And my
But
advice for people, yeah, like you said, diversify your friend group.
mhm,
I think it was so awesome that like I've always had African friends, but I feel like being friends with you was different because we were really close. And
mhm,
we oftentimes have like tough conversations, but also like interesting conversations. You put me on to
definitely,
new African artists. You put me on to you should like you teach me different things, and I tell you different things about my culture and my experiences. So it's just I just think it's
definitely.
important to have friends that are different than you. You
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I was saying when I said, like, but just try to find yourself a group of friends that are also that so that you guys can all vibe together. But at the same time, it's like don't lose connection with your other group of friends because I promise you, there's so much learning that you can learn from like those group of people that you're not even aware of. Like, and I felt like me, you're from like, you're Jamaican, Puerto Rican, and I'm African. And although, we're both black, we can still connect with that, but there's so many things that I've learned from you about like, just the Caribbean flavor, like, just don't be too big to learn it all. Like, don't be too big to learn, you
right,
know?
and don't be afraid to ask questions. I think
Yeah.
people like they assume
Hmm.
and they end up being offensive, and it's like no, just ask. Don't
Yeah.
assume that someone's from a particular country, or make a joke. Just ask, hey, where are you from? What
Yeah, definitely.
culture do you practice? What language do you speak? Because I think when you assume, that can be like offensive and harmful.
Yeah,
People start to argue. So I think that's good. Ask questions.
definitely. There's so much to learn from everybody. So it's like
Right, it's
learn from who
we
you
there's so many people in this world. There's so many cultures and books and movies and places that you can go and learn, and just diversify, open up your mind, be open-minded. Don't, like I said in the previous podcast, like it would suck if we were all the same. I
hmm.
think God made us so that we can all be different and learn from each other. you know
Definitely.
so I think that's
Just
good.
take advantage of that. Learn from your
Right.
African friends and learn from your Hispanic, your Asian,
Yes,
your
Native American, Muslim,
your like
Jewish.
whoever. Like don't discriminate. We don't do that over here. All right. And that's
Right.
why Mimi had a little lamb. Okay. Just
Thank
kidding.
you so much, Mommy, for joining me on this
Of
podcast.
course.
I really appreciate it. This was so awesome. You can follow Mommy on Instagram at Mamie Bawoh, MamieBawoh, and subscribe to her YouTube channel, Mamie Bawoh. See you in the next episode, guys. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Bye.